me share a case that highlights one of the most important concepts in immigration: credibility. A client came to me recently in distress. They had received a notice of intent to revoke, and this was not a denial. This was worse. The USCIS was saying, we have already approved the petition, but now we are reconsidering taking that approval back. In this case, the petition was a marriage-based I-130. It had already been approved. The couple believed everything was moving forward. They were planning their future. Everything was great. And suddenly, USCIS issued a notice of intent to revoke. So naturally, the question then becomes, what went wrong? When I reviewed the notice, it became clear that the USCIS was not focused on the current marriage alone. They had gone deeper. They had gone back into the beneficiary's immigration history. And this is where everything changed. Years before the current petition, the beneficiary had been involved in another marriage-based case. At that time, it likely seemed like just another application. But USCIS does not forget. Everything you submit becomes part of a permanent record. And so in that prior case, there were red flags. There were inconsistencies about the marital status. There was no clear evidence that a previous marriage had been properly terminated before entering into a new one. And the documentation that was submitted to prove a shared life was weak. Limited joint evidence, unsupported claims, and affidavits that lacked credibility. But what truly damaged the case was something more deeper. The prior spouse had a sworn statement. Under oath, he admitted that the marriage was not real. He stated that the relationship was entered into for immigration purposes and that he had been paid to participate. Now, this statement did not disappear. It stayed in the record. And so when USCIS later reviewed the new petition, they connected everything. They looked at prior filings, the inconsistencies, and the lack of documentation, and also the sworn admission. And based on all of that, they concluded that the beneficiary had engaged in marriage fraud. It became a credibility case. So at that point, the case was no longer about the current marriage. It wasn't about whether the current marriage was real. It was a bigger problem: credibility. And here's where the law comes in. So under INA section 204C, I believe, if USCIS determines that a person has entered into or attempted to enter into fraudulent marriage, the person is permanently barred from having future marriage-based petitions approved. Let me repeat that. Permanently barred. It does not matter if the current marriage is genuine. It does not matter if the person has changed. It definitely does not require criminal conviction. All the USCIS needs is what they call substantial and probative evidence. And in this case, they believe they had it. So now this client, who thought they were moving forward, was facing the possibility of losing everything because of something in the past. This case teaches a very, very important lesson. Immigration, again, is not just about eligibility. It is the credibility you build over a period of time. USCIS is not just reviewing what you submit today. They are reviewing everything you have submitted in the past. Every form, every statement, every relationship, every inconsistency. And when things don't add up, it raises questions. When documentation is weak, it raises questions. Where evidence is lacking, or when there is evidence of fraud, that changes everything. Now, again, because once credibility is broken, it is very difficult to rebuild. I tell my clients all the time, be truthful from the beginning. Be consistent across applications and never assume that something from the past will not come back, because it will. Your immigration history follows you, and in many cases, it becomes a deciding factor in your future. If you're filing any immigration petition, especially marriage-based petition now, you need to understand that you are not telling a story for today. You're building a record that USCIS will rely on for years to come. And so take it seriously. Document properly. And in case you're in doubt, grab your phones and call my office at 703-705-9905. My name is Akosia Kisi. Remember that immigration is not just about the paperwork you're putting together. It is about the credibility that you have built over time. And your credibility is not just important. It is everything. I'll see you next time.